Okay, now let's... Wow, that was so loud. I'm so sorry. Wow, this is like interesting being able to actually hear myself. How am I going to start this? My stomach. That's how I'm going to start. I'm going to start with my stomach going. Stupid. How do you start a video that isn't a roleplay? I don't know. Obviously, I struggle with it every single time. I just move the microphone a little bit. That was really loud. I apologize. Editor, like future you, Sage. Hi. Okay, for real this time. Let's do this. Hi, welcome to TingleCon. I hope that you've been enjoying all of the videos and the workshops and the panels and the streaming, and oh my gosh, there's so much fun to enjoy. So I hope that you've been having a great time at TingleCon so far this year. If you haven't met me, my name is Sage. I run a channel called Whisperwind ASMR, and every video on my channel is a fantasy roleplay that takes place within a fantasy world that I've created that's sort of D&D-ish, Skyrim-ish inspired, like that kind of genre of fantasy. So every video you have, there's a bunch of recurring characters and recurring settings, and you get to know the people of this town, and there's like an overarching story that you can enjoy, all within the context of ASMR. So something that I have had a lot of fun with, just kind of experimenting with and developing in my videos, is the use of B-roll and other angles and things like that, just to add some more like cinematic elements to my videos. So I thought it would be fun to kind of talk about that and my process for creating those B-roll scenes and how to implement them a little bit to make them, seem kind of seamless, I guess, and give your videos that cinematic feel to it. Now, before we get started, this is very much not necessary. You can still make amazing ASMR videos and amazing role plays without all of this extra stuff, without the extra shots and the extra work that this takes. But if you're looking for a way to just kind of up the artistic feeling of your videos and just kind of give some more depth, especially when you're doing role plays like with cool settings or something, this is a fun way that you can do that, So it's something that I've had a lot of fun with. So let's get started. Okay, so when I am starting to sort of think about what B-roll I want for a video, I always start out with thinking about the setting more in depth of like where the video is taking place. We have the healer's cottage, and that has like all of the little vials and stuff, as she's making you different potions and tinctures and elixirs and all of those little concoctions that she makes. And then we have the tavern is a very popular one. And then Clea, she has a shop that like it's a mercantile, like it's got the necessities, but it's also got all of these interesting little items that she sells as well. And then Isabel is our inventor, and she has a shop where she makes steampunk inventions and weapons and armor and all this kind of stuff. So like Rhea is our tavern girl, and she's like every video that we've seen of her, she's been at the tavern. So then I stop and I think, okay, well, what would be in a medieval tavern? What's something that I could have in a video that would translate to just kind of show the viewer that that's where we are. So a lot of the B-roll that I do for her are different bottles that I've filled with alcohol. It's just water and food coloring. Well, most of them. But yeah, so there's bottles and different glasses and things like that. And the shots that I do for B-roll for that are usually action shots of Rhea doing something. Now, usually it's just like either like, neck down a little bit, or it's just her hands. But I just I play around with angles, and I think about like, well, what would a tavern girl be doing? She would be pouring different drinks for people. She would be delivering those drinks. She would be cleaning glasses. She would be wiping down the bar, like any of that kind of stuff. And I implement all of those just in different capacities, either in the beginning or throughout the video too. Now, with each video as I'm shooting B-roll, I try to get a variety of angles. So it's not just like all of my B-roll is shot from the same angle. Usually I do at least 2 or 3. Sometimes it depends. Like with intro shots, I'll sometimes do a different angle for every shot too. And that's just something that like you got to play around with a little bit. Honestly, like the introductions that I do are usually between like 30 seconds and a minute long. And I usually have like at least 9 minutes of footage that I sort through of like what I actually shot, you know, down to what I actually end up using. Because I don't want introductions to be like too long where they drag on, but I like to be able to set the scene. So I definitely like shoot way more than I need. And oftentimes I will start shooting something and then I'll be like, oh no, like this would be better if my hand was over here, or if this was just a little bit higher or something like that. And so I'll reshoot the same little 5-second sequence like 10 times because I'm also a perfectionist. But yeah, and there are a few things that I try to keep in mind when I'm shooting, like where my hand is, especially like with the action shots that I do where like a hand is coming in to grab a glass or something like that. Like I don't want to reach in front and have like the whole image just be like my hand coming in. Usually I try to like come in from the top, or I come in like kind of from the side or something so that you're still seeing the majority of the props and stuff. And then my hand is just kind of there, but not like hand. I hope that makes sense. So another thing that I do when I'm starting to plan out B-roll shots is I think about what my character was doing before the viewer walks in or shows up or wakes up or whatever the case may be. Something that's important to think about with your videos, especially with role plays, is that your character doesn't just start and end at the beginning and the end of a video. You know, like your character was doing something beforehand and they're going to keep doing something and living their own lives after the video is done. So if you can think about that and think like, well, what is something that they would naturally be doing, like with their job or in this setting or whatever, then you can sort of implement that into an introduction, and then that can sort of segue into the actual video as well. So I try to do that a lot. One of the videos that I just recently put out is one with our healer in the woods. She has this cottage where she has all these different ingredients and stuff. It is by far my most extensive set and also my most fun. It's got all of these like tiny little jars that are all labeled and stuff. So the video that I just did last time with her, she started out the video by basically taking an inventory of all of the different bottles and supplies that she has and looking at like, okay, well, what am I running out on so that I need to, go into the forest and get more ingredients or something like that. So the whole introduction was basically that, was her doing that. It was her, like her hand, kind of, you see it like going through the bottles and like picking that up. Oh no, I've got enough of that. Oh, that one's almost empty, and taking that one out. And then it was a shot like of just kind of, half like torso, where she was picking up the bottles again and writing them down on a list. And then it was her putting the bottles back. And then at that point is when your character actually walks in and like starts talking to her or whatever. So that was just kind of a fun way to like kind of tell a little mini story before we even get to like the real story. So I like to do stuff like that when I can. Not all of them are that extensive, but when I get to do it that extensive, it just adds that extra little bit of depth. And personally, I think it makes your characters feel more real too, when you can give them story that doesn't just exist within your videos, because like every video that you do is just a snapshot of their life. My cat's out there. I usually lock him in like my bedroom closet because he's really obnoxious when I'm trying to film. He really, really likes attention, and he doesn't like closed doors like ever. Yeah, I'm gonna go get him. Hold on. Mookie, come here. Come down here. I'll pet you over here. Come here, Bubba. Okay, there we go. Where was I? So So something else that I try to focus on when I'm setting up different B-roll shots is having some that are macro, that are really close up and you're just focusing on like one or two little small things, and then having shots that are, you know, a little further away and you're seeing lots of different props in it. Sorry, my cat's down here now. And I like to have a variety of those different shots so you can just kind of get a perspective of everything as well. And then I also like to have a variety of shots, some that are just like setting pieces where like you don't see any part of a person, and then other shots where it maybe starts out that way and then you see a hand come in and grab a bottle or grab a tool or something, or sometimes even just like adjust a tool so that it's straight in line, or adjust one of the little bottles so that you can see the label better. Something like that. Those are fun little, just tiny little moments that add just a little bit of interest to a shot. And then if I'm doing a shot that I don't have like my hand in or something, sometimes I'll also do a pan where I'm either going side to side or like up and down with one specific item, or, you know, again, two or three, something like that. And mainly for that, just like try to keep your camera smooth. Obviously, I would highly suggest using a tripod. If you don't have one, like, it's not strictly necessary, but it does, like, I'm super wobbly when I'm just holding a camera. As still as I try to be, it's never still. So I would definitely suggest investing in a tripod. They're not that expensive, and for what you can do with them, I think it's super, super worth it. So yeah, I'll do a pan, and mostly what I'm focusing on is just getting it smooth so that there's not any like little creaks in it, because my tripod is kind of old. And then of course you can always like speed it up or slow it down in post if you need to, and cut out parts of it. But yeah, so those are some of the different types of shots that I try to get, like a variety of close up and far away, of light things and dark things, of shots with my hand in it and shots without that. Shots of like, you know, kind of a torso shot with a character doing something. And then also I have a lot of candle shots. Candles are an easy thing to film to give like just a little bit of motion to a video, where like I'll light the candles and then I'll stand back and I'll be like and try to like get the flame to flicker just a little bit. You don't want it to be like crazy because you're not outside, but just like a little bit of a life flicker in it. It's kind of silly. Sometimes my husband has walked in and seen me just being like, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm trying to get the perfect shot. That's what I'm doing. I also like shots of somebody lighting or extinguishing a candle too. That can be a fun little thing. Usually I'll do lighting candles at the beginning of a video and then extinguishing them at the end of the video, like either like an outro, or just like the screen that you have in the background as like other videos pop up on YouTube, that kind of stuff. So then I'll like have the character blow out the candle and then you can like see the smoke wafting up, just that like little bit of motion. Oftentimes when I have a video that has like bigger chunks of B-roll in the middle of it, for example, like my videos at the Healer's Cottage, oftentimes the way I set them up is there's an introduction, and then you're talking to Farron, the character, and it's a shot kind of like this where it's mostly just, you know, her face. And then she actually makes you the potion, and for that shot, it's usually like you're looking above at her bowl and the ingredients that she has there. She's mixing or crushing things and talking about what she's putting in the potion. And then an outro where she's like holding up the potion and saying like, here it is, and this is how you use it or whatever. And then she kind of like bids you farewell, and then there's an outro. So that's kind of the typical setup that I do for her videos. Now, along with that, like as I transition between the sort of the A roll of like you talking to her and then the B roll of her like doing the potion, I have transition scenes in there of her grabbing all of the different ingredients that she's going to use for the potion. And then after the potion is done, there's images of her putting back all of those ingredients in the same spot. So I shoot all of those together, and usually I just do it all in one go. So I'll set my camera up and I'll say, okay, focus on that ingredient, and I'll, kind of off center it a little bit on my screen. And then I'll like go in, I'll grab it, I'll wait a second or two, and then I'll put it back. And then in editing, I can cut that and I can put, the part where she grabs it at the beginning and the part where she puts it back at the end, that kind of thing. So I try to be efficient with it. And it's definitely something that, like, as I've created more videos, I've had my channel for almost a year. Actually, by the time TingleCon happens, it will be a year. So I've definitely learned how to be efficient with things like this, and, reusing little moments when I can, but also trying to have unique moments for every video too. So it just kind of depends. And usually I shoot B-roll either directly before or directly after I shoot like the actual video, just so everything is still set up and I'm still in costume and I'm still kind of in that mindset, and I can still think about, like, okay, what are the things that I used? What did I mention? What do I not need to focus on in B-roll? That kind of stuff. Now, specifically with Farron's videos, those I actually usually film on 2 separate nights. And the first night I will do the B-roll, like the shots of her grabbing different things and like all of those kind of introductory shots. And then I'll do her making the potion. And I'll have my, my microphone on and talking about whatever I'm talking about, and, do that whole thing. And then the next night, or sometimes later that night, but usually the next night, then I'll do the parts where you actually see Farron. So that way I know that, like, for the outro, I have the potion already made up, so I don't have to, like, go and do it and then piece it all together or whatever. And then oftentimes those nights get really long, so splitting it between 2 nights makes it a little bit easier. And then for the first night, when I'm doing B-roll and, like, actually making the potion, I don't have to do my makeup and, like, put on the wig or anything. In fact, usually I don't even have to, like, be fully in costume, because you just see, like, my arms or whatever. So I just wear the arm warmers and it's fine. Again, that's something you just kind of have to, like, play around with. And that's a system that I have found after doing a couple videos with Farron. That's what works for me. And if a different system works for you, then, like, obviously do whatever works for you. But that's what I found works best for me, is to split it up in 2 different nights and do it that way. Other videos, usually if it's just like a few shots, I will do just before or after. Now, when we go to the tavern, Rhea is pretty much always pouring you a drink at some point, either at least once during a video. And usually we go to B-roll of her actually pouring that. So you'll see kind of like her head on, and then she'll, like, get the bottle, and then, like, when we go to actually pour the drink, you'll see more of a close-up of, like, the bar and the glass and the bottle as she's pouring it or something like that. And then we'll go back to like the full-on shot of her. So with those, usually what I do is I shoot the whole video, like, without stopping, or try to without stopping, you know what I mean. But I shoot the whole thing, and I do actually have Rhea, like, pouring the beverage or whatever. I do it all the way through once, and then afterwards I go back and I change my camera angle, and that's when I get the B-roll. And I give myself a little bit of leeway, so I might, like, say the line that she says right before she pours it or right after she pours it. And I'll probably do it 2 or 3 times too, so that I know that I'll have something that I can piece together and make it look cohesive. So she's not saying, like, all right, and then saying all right again or something like that. I hate it when I have to do that. I try really hard not to. Every once in a while I miss it, and there's, like, 2 lines right next to each other. But yeah, I try to make that, like, as seamless as possible so that it seems like it's all shot at the same time, but it's usually not. Because I have 2 cameras, but one of them is really not good quality, and I can tell the difference between them, so I don't like doing that. Usually I just shoot the whole thing and then shoot the B-roll moments twice. That way it's also just that much less footage, because if you have 2 cameras set up the whole time, then that's 2 cameras worth of footage to sift through for the whole time that you're editing. Which, if you have the cameras and you're able to do that, it would save you time, like, in filming, but maybe just be a little bit harder with editing. I don't know. I guess if you're efficient, you could do it both ways. I'm just a little bit scatterbrained, especially when I'm editing. I'm always like, what was I doing? Where was this going? Also, I color code things all the time. If you look at my, like I use Premiere Pro and you can change clips to be different colors. And I always have like intro shots are like red, and then, you know, the first part is orange and then the next part is yellow. And I have things like color coded all over the place so I can put it together in order and make it look how I want it to look, just to kind of keep my sanity together. So then when I'm actually editing and I'm putting all of the B-roll pieces together, like I said earlier, I usually have 9 or 10 times as much footage as I actually end up using. Usually I will pop that video into my timeline and I'll change the duration of it or the speed of it to be more like 150% or 200%. So I'm hearing myself talk like a chipmunk, but that way I can just get through it a lot faster and just cut and be like, okay, I want this little scene. And then that's me like adjusting something. So I don't need that. And I can just cut that out. And it makes that process go, you know, instead of 9 minutes of footage, I'm only watching 4.5 minutes. And then after I have kind of the cuts where I want it, then I make them in real time. And then I can kind of finesse it and shorten things and lengthen things and all that kind of stuff. And then picking an order for the B-roll is mostly just kind of finding a balance between the pieces that like have motion in them and like what that motion is, and then like pieces that are still or pieces that are, you know, panning up and down or side to side or something like that. I just try to do kind of a variety, and also like have different angles and like focusing on different objects for each shot that you see too. So like I said, there's a lot of footage that I never end up using, but that way I know that I have what I need and I don't have to like go back and redo it, especially with some of my more extensive sets that like take a long time to set up. If I had to like go back and fully reset that up again just to get some more B-roll because I didn't get enough the first time, that would be pretty irritating. So that's my cat. So yeah, I try to just shoot like as much as I can, really. And you can always cut stuff, but you can't always go back. So just like making sure that you get the shot that you want and, you know, playing around with it and trying different things and trying different angles. And you might look at something later and like in editing and be like, oh, well, that looks terrible. Or, oh, I had like a corner of something that I didn't want in the shot. And then you have to like kind of crop it in or whatever. But there's a lot that you can do in post. If you're, you know, not paying attention when you're filming, you can fix it, especially things like lighting and colors and stuff like that. But for the most part, like as long as you get a decent amount of footage, there's a lot that you can do. So anyway, hopefully this wasn't too scatterbrained and it made sense, but that's kind of my process for how I do B-roll footage and sort of incorporate that into videos in different ways. Again, like not something that you have to do in your videos and your role plays by any means, but I find it really fun to just kind of create more depth to a setting. And I also love it when I see other creators doing it too. I always, always, always love it because I know the amount of work that goes into doing something like that. And I really appreciate it. Like someone taking the time and the effort and the care with a video to put in those little extra moments that just make it feel a little more special and a little more real, like I'm actually there. So if that's something that you're interested in, there's a few of my little tips and kind of how I do it. Feel free to hit me up anytime if you have other questions about this, or if you want me to like go more in depth into any of this. You can leave me a comment. You can find me on Twitter at WhisperwindASMR. You can send me a message on Instagram. Sometimes I don't check those. I forget to. So probably a Twitter DM is your best bet, or just at me or whatever. I'll see it. But yeah, I hope that this was informative and that you enjoy the rest of TingleCon. So have a great day.